Welcome to Learning MoGraph for Fusion. This is going to be a quick overview to help you get going doing MoGraph in Fusion. Let's get started.
Okay, let's all go. Final, go, guys, go.
This is a really good base to jump off from. You can add a lot of different particle effects, even motion graphics, also a lot of other layers in 3D as well to really give a depth and so forth. So this is just really a beginning, a starting place. There it is. Okay, well, let's get started. So I've got this image that I found off the internet. It is from NASA, and you can probably find an image or many similar images like this from NASA. It's free to use. So what we're going to do is, this is a pretty big image. As you can see, it's about 6,000 by 6,000. So what I want to do is put a resize node, and we'll just bring this down to about 3,000 by 3,000. That way we're not dealing with such large images. So what are we going to do from here? Well, we've got a couple things to do, but first let's go ahead and start with the displace. And let's add some fast noise. All right, let's look at our fast noise. We need to match the size of our image. So let's put this at 3,000 by 3,000. All right, so we're gonna adjust some parameters here in our fast noise. Let's go to the gradient tool, and let's just adjust some of this real quick. Let's add some points. All right, so this is starting to shape up. Let's go to our noise and let's add some detail. So let's put in somewhere around 7. And then we're gonna increase our contrast a little bit. And just take down the brightness some. Let's scale this up. Yeah, that looks about right. Okay, so let's go ahead and put this in ping pong mode, and we're going to give this fractal noise, or this fast noise, we're going to give it a little expression. So what we've done here, it's going to put this in proxy mode just so we can go a little faster. What we're doing here is we're just kind of animating the offset value, so this kind of changes over time. And you'll see what this does here in a second. All right, let's connect our fast noise to our bitmap and then to our displace tool, our foreground. And we're going to go ahead and attach our space image to the input. All right, let's add some color correction. And in the shadows, we are going to bring down some saturation, bring down the gain, boost the lift a little bit, and take this down, the gamma, to right around there. All right, for our midtones, we're going to boost up the gain and take down some gamma. So we have this going into a bitmap. We need to change our channel that our bitmap is receiving information from alpha to luminance. And then there we go. Now we have some action, some movement happening on our displacement map. It's just kind of breaking the image up, giving it a little bit of movement. That's all we want. It's just nice little subtle movement. We're going to add another displacement. on top of this. Another CC, and let's add a blur node. All right, so for our color correction, we're going to take the master saturation down, and in our shadows, we are going to increase the lift just a little bit, right around there, and take the gamma down some. And for our midtones, we're going to increase the contrast. And our lift, we're going to bring down just a little bit and increase our gamma. All right, so for our highlights now, we're going to change our gain, just pump up the gain. And the gamma, let's take that down to about 0.75. Right in there, that's good. Let's pump up the brightness just a little bit, about 0.06. Let's see what we have here. That's kind of what we're looking at. Let's turn that off. So we've just desaturated our image and kind of tweaked some of the lift, gamma, gain, midtones, highlights, and shadows to kind of achieve this effect. Now we're going to add a blur to this. And so for our blur, 19 should do it. All right, now this is going to be basically our displacement map. And let's see what this is doing. So it doesn't really look like much has happened just yet, but I'm just going to go ahead and play with this, and you can kind of see already what it's doing. Now you can tweak this parameter, back and forth between color correction and your blur and your displacement, and you can really get some interesting results. So let's just bring down the blur so you can see what happens. Let's go ahead and do this. Let's put our blur in our second view. So what we've done is we've brought down the blur to around 3. And now our displacement reacts a little differently. It's a little more sharper. So you can see how that's kind of affecting it. If I go in and increase the blur, kind of soften some of that up. So now when we displace, it reacts differently. Each image is going to react differently based on its luminance values and so forth. So just play with that and get a sense of it and, adjust to taste. Okay, so for our second displace, we are going to animate that. So let's go back to frame 0, and let's put this. Now, depending on which way we animate it, we can start kind of in right around here. Let's add a keyframe, just double clicking. And then let's go to our last frame, and we're gonna increase it so it looks like it's pushing out. So here's our first keyframe, and here's our last keyframe. So we kind of have this pushing out towards us effect. This is just, again, a base level displacement. You can really start to get in and make specific maps based on the image and really get some nice effects. But for the sake of this tutorial, we're just gonna kind of do it at a base level. So now let's go ahead and we want to kind of give some the appearance that these clouds or these gases are kind of giving off light. So we kind of want to animate some light moving around in this and everywhere. We're going to add a couple of nodes here. We're going to do another fast noise, and we're going to take that to a bitmap as well. Don't forget that you want to change the channel that it's coming from to luminance. So the bitmap can receive the luminance information and then turn it into a matte. Bring this back up here. Okay, so we are going to do a couple things. We are going to use a fast noise as a animatable map, and then we're also going to take some of the highlight information from our image and use that as a mask or matte as well to guide and only show where we want to have our animated light effects. So that's what we're going to do, and let's see how this works here. All right, so first let's look at our fast noise. We're going to discontinuous, we're going to have inverted, we're going to increase the detail level to about 7.9, 8, somewhere right in there. We'll take our brightness down to about 0.7. And let's see here. Do we have this loaded up in our viewer? There we go. Let's load that up in our viewer. And again, we are going to have to change this to match our image. So you can see what we're kind of creating here just by clicking some parameters. We start to get this little cool electric looking fractal noise. And right now this fractal noise isn't really doing anything. So we're gonna turn up the seed rate, which is basically just automatically starts animating. And we're gonna put this around 0.6. And so this automatically starts animating. It would be the same as like an evolution for fractal noise in After Effects. Another bitmap, we're just going to copy, paste this guy right out of our image. So that's what we get. Remember, it's pulling the luminance channel and giving us basically an effects mat for our alpha. And then we're going to add a channel booleans tool. This tool is interesting. It coming from After Effects, I really didn't know what it does or what it did, but I encourage you to look up and research what this tool does. It's an extremely powerful tool that can act like a merge node, but you have all these different operations here. Really affect images any which way, and really get into the different channels and what you want to do with those channels. And your auxiliary channels, you can get into some pretty sophisticated things, like, if you're using optical flow, you can generate vectors to generate motion blur or other cool effects. Position data that you can pipe in anywhere and use for anything to generate depth of field. You can create depth of field on a 2D image. You can actually insert from a 3D render new materials onto 3D objects. So there's a lot of cool things you can do, but it's knowing where and how to pipe all these different channels to and from. So this is a tool that I'm really excited about, but I still have a lot to learn myself. Okay, so we're going to take our bitmap that is from our image. We're going to drop it into the channel booleans background. We're going to take our fast noise. Let's bring this down here. And we're going to drop this into the foreground. All right, so let's look at what we have here. So what we want to do is we want to take our operation and go to signal added. So now what we've done is we've pretty much are animating these cool little energy pulses based on our value of our image. So it's only going in certain areas, and it's revealing part of that image as well. So pretty cool little feature. We're going to pipe this in now to the effects mask of our color corrector, and we're going to take our displace, connect it. Let's view this. All right, so we need to make some changes because right now there's nothing really going on. Under our masters, we're going to bring down saturation a bit, and we're going to pump up the gain around 3. That's good. So as you can see now, we kind of have these little energy pulses happening on parts of our image. And again, this is an endless loop. You can create many different variations just on your fast noise alone, just by clicking that button. And you can see here it's starting to animate. Click this back on, turn off inverted, and now it's only happening in certain areas. Let's do that. Let's just see what we can come up with here. If we bring up the brightness, you can see what's happening and how it's affecting the image just by playing with the fast noise. But I'm going to put this back. where we had it. And then color correction. Gonna bring this. That should be good for now. All right, so we've kind of affected our image here. We really haven't done too much. Some displacement and some color correction. Now it's time to go ahead and start to put this into 3D. So let's go ahead and add an image plane. And we've got this image plane that has our galaxy. And if we play this, you can see it kind of just playing on this image plane right here. So we want to displace this as well. We want to give this some displacement. So we're going to add a displace node, a 3D displace node to this. And part of our displacement is creating a displacement map for our 3D environment. So I've created one already that I'm just going to insert in. And then I'll walk you through what we're going to do here. Okay, so what we've done is I've taken from our initial image, made it black and white, which we're just reusing these nodes, and that's the power of nodes really, is that you can just kind of keep reusing nodes that you've built already. So we've got this blur, and I've blurred it even more. I've got a fast noise that I created, and then I've merged it together to form this cool looking, turn this off. And I've added a little bit of breakup in here, if you can tell. So I'll put it to multiply, adjust the gain, and that's what we got. So this is going to be our map for displacement. So now let's look at our displacement, and you can see what it's doing already. It's kind of giving this cool bending and warping to our image. I'm going to turn off the grid here just so we can get a better sense of what's happening. So we've taken our space image and we've displaced it. Now, if you look at this displacement, it looks kind of jaggedy and doesn't look very good. So what we need to do is go back to our image plane and increase the subdivision level. I'm just going to put this at 100. So we've got nice, smooth displacements. So let's go ahead and go to single view, throw our displacement back up there. Oops. Let's turn off the grid so we can see what's going on here. All right, so our displacement, I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit more. Now we've got a nice cavernous cave we can start to work with. Okay, so let's add this to a merge 3D. This is going to be our basic hub. I'm going to go ahead and rename this to our light merge. This is where we're going to pump in all of our lights to. Let's add an ambient light. Let's add a directional light. So our ambient light, let's go ahead and bring that intensity down just a little bit, about 8.6, 8.7, and let's just kind of color this light. So for our directional light, let's do the same thing. Let's just add a little color. It should be good. Let's go to our controls. All right, so for our controls, our Y rotation, we're going to give it about 1.6, negative 1.69. Let's turn on some shading. Let's start to see what's happening here. Okay, so now let's go ahead and pipe in our light merge to our 3D merge. And let's make sure we tell our light merge to pass through the lights. Let's go ahead and add a camera. Now let's change our focal length to about 24 millimeters. Turn on our plane of focus. And let's turn this camera around negative 180. Oops. And let's move, oh, that's the light I want to grab. For some reason it keeps grabbing. There we go. Let's move the camera over. Let's add a renderer so we can see what we are doing. Gonna hit 1 on the keyboard. It's gonna show us the render node that we have selected. And we're gonna go to OpenGL, enable lighting, enable shadows. So we're gonna make sure that we have pass-through lights, ambient, okay, good, directional, okay, we're all good there. Yeah. All right, so renderer, enable lighting. Normally I like to go into float 16. We'll keep it in 8 just to speed things along. All right, so what I want to do is just adjust my plane of focus. I'm going to bring this guy down because it's just too far away. So let's go to like 0.4. Let's try, yeah, 0.4. Let's see what 0.4 does. Let's bring our camera back. Right about there. Let's go to our renderer and accumulation effects. Depth of field, we're going to turn this up to about 30. Quality. And the amount of blur we're going to bring down pretty far. Let's see what our render looks like. Yeah, I'm going to hold down the command key on a Mac. Scrub this down here just so we start to have some nice depth of field. So that's like 0.0027 and change. Go back to our camera. We can start to see here that if I adjust this to like 6, you can start to see where our focus is happening. 4 is the sweet spot. Let's give this camera a little animation. So real quick, let's give it some life. That looks good. Yeah, that looks good. There we go. Okay, so we're going to right click, animate translation group, right click, animate translation group, go to the end of our composition. Now just so you know that this is not just the end of your composition, Fusion, unlike a lot of other compositing or motion graphics apps, it's resolution independent, it's time-based independent as well, so you can just keep adding or subtracting time. Doesn't really matter. So for whatever reason, if we wanted to say that we wanted this to be like 250 frames, we just type it in. Now we have 250 frames. In this case, we're just going to keep it at 96. So at the end of our 96, we're going to come back, animate the camera. We're going to zoom backwards somewhere right in there. Let's turn off. Let's move over a little bit. Come back right around there. And we're going to put a rotation. Okay, and what we need to do also is animate our plane of focus. So I'm going to add a keyframe, but I need to come back to the beginning and set a keyframe. And then let's adjust this. There we go. So that way, as we're moving, our focus is moving too. What we could do, like right around in here, we could add a keyframe, come back to the beginning, and let's see what happens if we, let's try this that way. We come up, we see, yeah, that's kind of cool. And then we go back. Let's see what we can do. Activate the merge. Okay, so you can see our motion path of where our camera is moving, right? You can really see this motion path where our camera's moving. I want to give that a little bit of a curve. I don't want it to be just a straight line. So what I'm going to do, we've got our camera selected. I'm going to go in the spline, and we are going to turn all of these off, and we're going to look at the X offset. Now we've selected the X offset, and we're going to just fill in our frame here so we can see what's happening. I'm going to select this, hit Shift S, going to smooth that out. Now you notice when I smoothed out this path here, You see, it actually gave me a curve. There you go, you can see that. It gave me a curve for my motion path, my camera. But I'm going to adjust this down this way. I'm going to come over here and Shift S that as well. Now, I've got my keyframe selected. I'm going to hit the T key, and I'm just going to adjust this tangent. See how I'm adjusting that tangent there? Just going to bring it in a little bit. Same thing for this, and I'm selecting this keyframe. And then I'm going to just bring it down. And then I'm just going to alter these two back and forth. Okay, so there we go. We have nice movement on our x-axis. Let's go to the z-axis and see what we have here. Shift S. All right, here we go. Shift S. And that should do it. Just our Z rotation. Shift S and Shift S. So we should come into that nice and smooth. Let's hit T again on the keyboard, and we're just gonna bring this out. So that way it rotates, it swings around on this and lands gentle. All right, let's go back to the flow. So we pretty much have our render. We got everything. We've got our animation, we've got our focus plane animation, our camera's moving, we've got our space image warped. And now again, this is just a base. You know, you can really get in there and start to add more 3D elements, 3D layers, you know, asteroids, fractal maps as far as like space gas and all that fun stuff. Maybe we'll come back to this tutorial and do that. But for the most part, this is pretty much it. Okay, so here we go. Here's just some color correction and some camera shake that I created. Now, so let's see what this render looks like. Here's what it looks like now. Let's come over here towards the end, and let's add all this extra stuff. We have some camera shake, and on this camera shake, what I did was I animated the strength from 0, so it starts off with no camera shake, and by the time we get later on, it starts to build up. Let's go to the spline editor. So you can see what we have here with this camera shake. Builds up and then quickly de-escalates. So you can really start to put this image together once you start adding some color correction, film grain, and all that fun stuff. And so that will do it. We'll come back and look at how we did the 3D text. I hope we all learned something and we kind of got some new ideas on how to achieve warping and displacement and all that fun stuff. We'll come back and we'll look at how we did the 3D text. Well, there it is. Thanks for watching. Hopefully we learned something. So, take what you learned and make it better.